This is Mary Lewis at A Tiny Homestead, the podcast comprised entirely of conversations with homesteaders, cottage food producers, and crafters. Today I'm talking with Dahlia at Welcome to Chickenlandia. Good afternoon, Dahlia. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. It's actually raining here and cloudy, which makes it real hard to be high energy, but I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, we're going to get high energy. When we talk about chickens, we get high energy.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me about yourself and Chickenlandia, please.
Oh my goodness, where should I start? So, my name is Dahlia. I am a backyard chicken educator, but most people know me as the president of Chickenlandia. My biggest, the way that most people know who I am is through my YouTube channel. It's called Welcome to Chickenlandia. And also I have a website, welcometochickenlandia.com. I also have a podcast called Bach Talk. That's BAWKTAWK. I've got an online course, and I just published a book last year called Let's All Keep Chickens. So that's the cliff notes of what we're doing over here in Chickenlandia.
Okay, and you're in Oregon?
I am in Bellingham, Washington.
Washington, sorry. I always get them mixed up because it's the far left top corner of the United States, and I am from the top right corner of the United States originally. So I'm like, I know Washington and Oregon are over there. I just never know which one's which.
They're very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you get started in chickens? Because it's an interesting thing to be so incredibly passionate about.
Oh, well, I always say I didn't lie at night, when I was a kid, lie in bed thinking I'm going to be a backyard chicken educator when I grow up. That was not in the cards. I thought I was going to be a rock star. I thought I was going to be an actress. I was going to be the next great American filmmaker, all this stuff, talk show host, all this stuff. That did not happen, but I did spend time in Hollywood. I was working as a personal assistant, and I was working at Lifetime Television. And I was trying to get into the film industry, in a more professional way. And then I met my husband, and we got married. We started talking about having a family, and we were like, oh, we don't want to do this in Los Angeles. Like, we don't want to be in LA. So we moved. And when we moved, I really felt like, okay, like this is my new life, and it's okay. Like, the things that I thought were going to happen in my life didn't happen. And that's okay. But I really was, without knowing it, just mourning that loss of those dreams. Mm-hmm. And I had my first child, and my little baby boy. He was about 18 months old. And I also had a pretty intense case of postpartum depression. And I didn't know that I had that. Mm-hmm. And the people around me didn't know that I had it. Because, mothers are always they just go. They just do what they have to do. And you're not really thinking about that. And you're not thinking about yourself. You're just thinking about taking care of everybody else around you. So it happens that people are suffering and no one knows. But I was like, I really started to mourn that loss of those dreams. And I started to feel like I had no identity beyond being a mother and a wife, which I loved. But I felt that I had lost kind of who I was. And I said, I'm going to get some chickens. Well, who knows? I call it divine intervention, because why that? Mm-hmm. I was living in the suburbs. I was in a subdivision that originally had an HOA, but it just dissolved because nobody was, we just never did it. We never got together and actually did it. Mm-hmm. So I went to the farm store one day, of course I did all the research and everything, and went to the farm store, came home with a sack, literally a paper sack with 10 baby chicks inside. And I took those babies and I put them into the brooder, and I just feel like a miracle happened in my life. Like something happened. My heart opened
Mhm.
and a new dream came in. And I became so incredibly passionate about these animals. And I mean, I've had cats, I've had dogs. I have dogs still. I love my dogs. I love my kids. I love my family. You know, I have other hobbies and stuff, but nothing in my life has ever gripped me as much as this chicken thing for whatever for whatever reason. It just got me, and
It
I just couldn't stop talking about it. And eventually, it was only 6 months later, the local community college contacted me, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to teach a class on chickens?" And I was, in my head, I'm like, okay, so I've only had chickens for 6 months. Like, is this okay for me to teach a class? But I said yes, of course.
Mhm.
And after I was done, I did a whole bunch of research and really got all my information together. And after I was done teaching that class, a woman came up to me and she said, and she was an older woman, you could tell she was like kind of a farm lady. She came up to me and she said, I've been keeping chickens for 30 years, and I learned so much today that I didn't know. And that was it. It was like, okay, like this is it. This is what I'm going to do now. And now I make videos, and it's kind of like show business.
it is. It really is. You're not wrong. Well, I think it's a great thing to be doing. I mean, there's a saying about to each their own, and really everyone finds their thing. You know how people talk about finding their person? I think everyone finds their thing too.
Yes. Yes. And I think I heard a quote. It was actually from Steven Spielberg, which, I just happened to hear this quote from Steven Spielberg.
Uh-huh.
And he said, the dream of your life is the one that sneaks up behind you. And that's not verbatim. It was something like that.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh my gosh, like that's so true. I didn't know that this was what I was going to do. I didn't know that this would be the dream of my life, but it is. And it really snuck up on me. And I didn't, originally I didn't feel comfortable with the idea of teaching on a grander scale. I taught locally for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just get so many requests for help, and people would seek me out and ask me, please help. Please give us information. We want information. And so it was almost like this boulder rolling down a hill. It was like, I couldn't stop it even if I wanted to. It was just where things were going.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm really grateful for it. I'm really grateful for the experience, and, grateful to everybody who, didn't let me give up.
Yeah. I understand your obsession. I just haven't taken it quite as far. I'm going to talk about my dog again because she is my favorite thing in my life.
Dogs are
I have
awesome.
I have 4 adult children, and we got a puppy when we moved into our new place 3.5 years ago. And I was not a dog person. I loved cats. I liked dogs. And we got her, and I fell in love with her. And it came time for her to be spayed, and I really debated whether I wanted to have her spayed because I really wanted her to have babies.
Yeah.
I really wanted to go deep into this raising puppies thing, this breeding dogs thing.
Yeah.
And then I did the smart thing. I read up on it. And I decided that the world has enough dogs in shelters who need
Yeah.
homes. I didn't
Yeah.
need to have my dog produce more. And I decided not to do it, and we had her spayed. And it's probably a good thing. But I really did think about becoming a mini Australian Shepherd dog breeder because
Oh, those are cute.
she was so great. And
Those
then I
are cute little dogs.
yeah, and then I read up on it and they are cute little dogs, but they need jobs. And
Yeah.
she has a job. She gets to chase her frisbee in the yard and she has a long run. She gets all the exercise she needs. She's an excellent watchdog. She has jobs. But really they need to be in a big area where they can run off lead, and typically they're herding dogs, so they would really like to have some sheep or some cows or something to chase and push into wherever they need them to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to put out a bunch of puppies that people were going to have as just house pets because I don't know that
Yeah.
that's fair. So
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
so I understand your I need to do this with the chicken thing. I needed to do it with her too, and she's of course barking now. But I didn't need to do it badly enough that I was willing to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it 100% makes sense. And I do have I have 4 dogs.
Mhm.
I have Xoloitzcuintlis Squintlies. I don't know if you know what those are, but
Mm-mm. Nope.
uh they are Mexican hairless is another name for
Okay,
them.
yep.
And
Mhm.
if you've ever seen the movie Coco, that's the dog, the hairless dog that like leads
Yes.
them into the afterlife or whatever.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, I got 2 Chihuahua Xoloitzcuintli Squintly mixes, and then I have a purebred Xoloitzcuintli Squintly, and then we have a poodle, and they're all rescues, and they all
Mhm.
have issues, but I just love them so much. They're part of our family for sure, and
Yeah,
so I get the dog obsession as well.
we call her our fifth child, so
Yes, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
she's at the point where she's like a moody teenager right now. So, but we love her and I talk about her way too much, so I'm going to stop right now about the dog. Um so I don't want to not take the opportunity to ask you questions about chickens because you're here and you're an expert. So,
Yeah.
my first question is, why do chickens lay an egg every day when not all fowl lay eggs every day?
Well, it's kind of a misconception that they lay eggs every day. It really depends on the breeds that you get.
Okay.
There are very high production breeds that will lay eggs almost every day, but even the highest production breeds will take breaks. They will take breaks when they're molting,
Mhm.
usually, unless they're just like, some will continue to lay through the molt. That's actually not very healthy for them, but they've been bred so much to be pushed to lay like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then if they don't have enough daylight hours, they need a certain number of daylight hours. It has nothing to do with the cold. It has something to do with the cycle of like day and night.
Mhm.
If they don't have enough daylight hours in the winter time, if you're not supplementing light, they will also take a break. Even if they're the high production breeds, usually they will take at least somewhat of a break. And certainly after they're, after 1 year old, sometimes the chicken will lay through the winter the first year, but the second year it's very likely that will drop off. And with any chicken, they're going to lay the most amount of eggs in their first year or two of life, and then that will drop off greatly by the time they're 3 years. And certainly production breeds are bred to lay the most eggs that you can get out of them for that first year, maybe 2 of life, because most of those types of breeds, they don't live past a year because most of them are in factory farms. And even like non-factory farms, like just operations that are ethical and everything, those chickens usually don't live past 1 or 2 years. They're replaced by a new flock to get to optimize that egg laying.
Sure.
But the reason why chickens lay lots of eggs, and if you go to the jungles of Asia and you go and find a red jungle fowl, which is basically a wild chicken, they're not going to be laying an egg every day or every other day or 5 eggs a week or whatever. They're going to be laying a few eggs a month and then sitting on them and all that. But the reason why our chickens lay so many eggs is because we've selectively bred them that way
Okay.
over the years. And even if you go to let's say you go to India or you go to Africa, you're going to see different there could be breeds there that look a lot like the breeds that we have, but they're going to be different, and probably the number of eggs that they lay will be different because they forage more, they're retained more of their wild nature, and they've just not been bred to lay as our chickens have in the Western world.
Okay.
So there's my very long answer to your short question.
I figured that it was probably something that we caused because we humans tend to bend things to our will a lot when
Oh, we
maybe we don't
certainly do.
need to. Um, I don't want to get too far down that because it will be a longer discussion than anyone has time for
Oh,
today.
yeah.
Um,
Same.
the other thing I was wondering is, are chickens good mamas? Because we don't have a rooster and we have like 18 chickens right now, laying hens, and we've never let them have babies. We've never let them go broody and hatch eggs, and they couldn't anyway because they don't have a rooster right now. But if you have a rooster around and you let the chickens actually sit on the eggs, are they good mamas after the chicks hatch? Because I have no idea, and I was curious.
Well, that's another thing where it depends.
Hmm.
Not every chicken is going to have that instinct, that broody instinct to sit on eggs, to incubate eggs, and to raise baby chicks.
Hmm.
Certainly, production breeds have had that instinct bred out of them, and so they may live their whole lives and not ever go broody. Usually, there are chickens like Buff Orpingtons are a little more likely to go broody. Certainly, if they are breeder stock and not from a hatchery, they would be more likely to retain that instinct. And then bantams are bred more for broodiness, more for personality, more for being beautiful and being pets, and so they're also going to be more likely to retain that broody instinct. There are some chickens, especially first-time mamas, where they would sit on a nest for 5 days, and you're like, oh, this chicken is really wanting to raise babies, and you go and you get some fertilized eggs, and you put them underneath her, and then on the 6th day, she says, oh, those mealworms look a lot better than this nest. I'm not going to go
Hmm.
get those. And then I'm not going to come back to the nest, and then all the eggs are going to turn into duds. So that can happen. It really depends on the chicken.
Hmm.
And if you have a chicken that is raising baby chicks for the first time, it's certainly a good idea to keep an eye on them, make sure that they're setting on the nest for the time that they need to. Make sure, check on them once the babies hatch. You need to go and check on them first thing in the morning and keep an eye on, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to as a mother. But usually if they get to that point, they're going to be fierce protectors of those babies, and all those motherly instincts are going to kick in. A good mother hen will mother almost anything. You could put ducks underneath her, you could put peacocks, you could put guinea fowl, you could put turkeys, and she's gonna, some people even put kittens,
Hmm. Yep.
and she's gonna keep them warm and take care of them. So I would say if they are naturally a mother hen, usually they're going to be good mothers.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is my husband had a brilliant idea of getting a rooster and letting nature take its course, and I said, I don't know. Let me do some research on that. I said, because I'm not quite sure it's going to go the way you think it's going to go. And
Well,
he,
if the hens are not, if they don't have that instinct to go broody, then it won't matter if the eggs are fertilized. Like they have to sit on the eggs and incubate them, and
yeah,
so yeah.
yeah. Well, we have friends that had some bantams that had babies, and the mother hen was great. I mean, those chicks would
Yeah.
just follow her around, and she took good care of them, and he'd seen that. And I was like, um, please let me do research before we do this because I don't really want a rooster. Roosters can be really mean and do damage, and I don't know that I want a rooster. And
They can. I like bantam roosters because even if they're mean, it's like, whatever, dude.
they're smaller too than a normal sized rooster, so
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah.
But finally, I dug into it and I came back to him what I found out, and I said, "Do you really want a rooster?" He said, "After everything you just told me, and I believe you, no." He said, "If we want to get chicks, we'll get chicks from Tractor Supply or somewhere." I was like, "Okay, good." And haven't done it yet. It hasn't been a necessity at all. We actually have been just swamped with eggs this winter because we put a light in the
Yeah.
coop. And
Mhm.
so I have like 12 dozen eggs sitting on my table right now that I need to deal with. And
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I
Freeze them.
suspect half of them are going to go in the trash because they're more than 6 weeks old. And the other half are probably going to get frozen. So
Yeah. Yeah. Freezing them is great.
yeah, it's a lot of eggs and can't sell them right now. Nobody in our area really wants to buy eggs at $3 a dozen.
Oh, wow.
So we're stuck with them, and that's fine if I was baking, but we're now past the holiday season and I'm not baking. So, ta-da. Okay, so you have a book out. Tell me about
Yes.
the book.
Well, it is called Let's All Keep Chickens, the Down to Earth Guide to Natural Practices for Healthier Birds and a Happier World. And it is a book that you can get if you're just getting into it, or if you're in the research stage. You can get it. It's going to teach you everything that you need to know to get started. It's certainly more of a natural leaning book rather than using lots of medications and stuff like that. I'm very, very natural leaning. Not that I'm against that. It's just that's my preference.
Yeah.
And then I also, the way that I wanted to differentiate this book from the many, many, many chicken books that are out there, because there's lots and lots of chicken books to choose from, and a lot of them are really good. But what was different for me is that I fell in love with chicken keeping because of what it meant in my life, the meaning of it, the practice of it. And so I wanted to pass along that feeling of doing something meaningful to the people that would read my book, because I don't think that it's just an important thing to do. Like it's a great thing to do for your health, for your family's health. Obviously, fresh eggs are great,
Mm-hmm.
but also it will bring a connection with nature into your life that a lot of people don't have. I grew up in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas. My parents were immigrants from Guatemala. They worked all the time. We didn't even have a garden. Like they didn't have time for that. I was like the perfect example of like the Gen X generation, where we grew up in front of our TV and we were still playing outside and stuff, but we were very disconnected from the food that we eat. And it was really the beginning of that disconnection from nature, and of a more of a replacing it with technology, which is never going to be the same. Um, and so I wanted to connect with people that had also felt that disconnection in their life, and kind of bring that back into their lives and see how they could use chicken keeping to bring that connection with nature back. And even if you just spend 5 minutes outside with your chickens, like that time is going to be so valuable in your life. And a lot of people that follow me and have my book, they're urban chicken keepers. And I really think that's important too. I think there is a tendency within the rural community, and I'm in the county, like I'm not in the city anymore, although I grew up as a very city girl. And of course I came here from LA, from
Mm-hmm.
from Hollywood. Like, you don't get any more city than that
Yeah.
unless you're in New York or whatever, or Paris. But so like I get it, and so that's close to my heart, and I really feel like there's this tendency to kind of focus on, okay, well, you should get some land and you should get chickens and you should have a garden and all this stuff. But there's so many people in this country and in the world that just are never going to have access to that kind of land. Like, that's just not going to happen for them. And I feel like even so, that they still have this birthright to a connection with nature, and that has been really taken from all of us. It's kind of like a universal trauma that we've all experienced. So I aim to heal that, and I'd love to see chickens everywhere. Like, I want to see them legal in every city. I want to see community chickens in cities. Apartment complexes should be able to have community gardens, community chickens. These are things that are really important to me. And so that's why the book is called Let's All Keep Chickens. Mm-hmm. And also my YouTube channel is Welcome to Chickenlandia. My website is Welcome to Chickenlandia, because it's a place where everyone belongs. I want us all to kind of come together this way. And, and I also like bringing people together in general. I think, right now we're really divided as a world, as a country, as a world. And I feel like if we can focus on one thing that is a common denominator among all of us, because pretty much every culture in the world has chickens within its history in a very significant way. And we've been doing this as a species. We've had this symbiotic relationship with the chicken for millennia. And if we can focus on that, then maybe there would be a little less focus on all the things we're fighting about, So that is another thing that's important, that's in my heart. And certainly I tried to communicate all of that in the book.
Yeah. You are not the only person who has said that to me, not only in the last couple of months, but just in the last couple of days in interviews that I've done. Not about the chickens, but about the fact that we're all very divided right now, and that the thing that you're doing or they're doing gives them that chance to breathe and step away from the things that divide us and toward the things that don't. And I'm starting to think that people who are passionate about animals or plants or nature probably know what's going on, probably know how to maybe make the world a better place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the answer. And in fact, when I was researching the book, it was I had already started writing it, and then the pandemic happened and the lockdowns and everything, and it was such a oh gosh, like it was like going through a wormhole. It was such a weird time to be alive, And
I say it was the quietest apocalypse ever.
I had really the bones of the book already written, and I had written a lot of the other parts of it, but I went back like after COVID happened, and really after all the lockdowns happened. I went back and I changed a lot in the book, because one thing that I realized, I was like, nothing was open. All the parks were closed. Everything was shut down. The kids couldn't go to school. Everything was shut down. But we could go out into the chicken yard. Like, we had that. We could still have that connection. And I started to think, oh my gosh, what about the people in apartments? Like, what about the children?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where are they going? What is happening? They can't go to the park. They can't, they can go outside, but it's still not the same as like really connecting with nature. And that's when I thought, okay, it is absolutely imperative that everybody understand that they have a right to this experience.
Yeah.
And so I really went back and changed a lot of things about the book. And also my feeling about chicken keeping changed, because I saw how in the Western world, we were really starting, chicken keeping kind of started out after World War II, from the 50s on. there was this idea of just like, oh, chicken keeping is like low class. That's what poor people do. They have chickens. And so there was that. Not good. That's not good. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And then because then, like, you can't have chicken. You live in a neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. You can't have chickens. There's an HOA. They say, oh no, you can't have chickens. That's going to bring our property values down. All this stuff that really is just imaginary. It's not like, I understand where people get these ideas, but it's really my agenda to dispel them because they're not based on reality.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started to see, and certainly when the eggs, like there was that point in after the pandemic, in this, I guess it was the spring of 2023 or the winter, like early spring, late winter, where the price of eggs just shot up like crazy. And then there were like no eggs on the shelf. And all these articles came out where it was like, we know that the eggs are so expensive, but don't get chickens because they're really expensive. And then I started to see, okay, now there's these roadblocks put up in front of poor people having chickens. And it's becoming like this exclusive thing. Like, you can only do this if you have $1,000 to spend on a coop. And you only feed them chicken feed, and you only, you do all these things that are really products of factory farms. They're the information that we have that has come from factory farms. The science has come from factory farms, and we've been made to believe that we need to have all these bells and whistles, or else we're not doing it right. And there's a lot of educators that are proponents of that. And I'm not talking bad about them. It's not bad information, but it's not the whole picture. Because if you see the poorest people in the world, you will see them next to their chickens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna jump in and support you on this, because back when we lived in the house that we lived in before, when that first wave of bird flu went through, not just a few years ago, but a while back, we decided to get chickens, and we lived in town, in our tiny town, and we weren't technically supposed to have chickens, but it was a complaint-based situation. So we told our neighbors, we said we would like to get 4 or 5 chickens. We have a shed that we're going to build, and would you guys be okay with us having chickens? No rooster, just chickens. And our neighbors were fine with it. They thought we're crazy, but they were fine with it. And then when we had extra eggs, we would share, and then they were really fine with it. Because when you're nice and you share, people like it. So that was all well and good. And then everything kind of settled down, and the chickens aged out, and that was it. And then COVID hit, and we still had the shed. And I said to my husband, do you think we could go see our friendly chicken lady over a couple towns over and see if she has any chickens for sale? Because I would like to get chickens again. This is freaking me out.
Yeah.
And he said, why, yes, we can. So we went and we got chickens, and we had chickens again. And our neighbors were like, got any eggs? I was like, yes, we have eggs. You want some? Yes. Okay, cool. So in the way that I want to support you in what you're saying is that we were a one-income family with 4 kids. Those eggs were important to us.
Yeah.
And then they weren't as important to us because our circumstances changed. And when we decided to move to acreage from a 1/10 of an acre lot to 3.1 acres, we brought the chickens with us, and we got more chickens because chickens are fun. They're funny. They are... They provide us with eggs. We are having French toast for dinner tonight because I got to use some of those eggs.
Yum.
But it's so hard sometimes because people have been taught one thing and the truth may be another. And I discovered this talking with a lady about goats. She has goats. And I made the mistake of saying anyone who's ever raised goats or knows anybody who's raised goats knows that they are mischievous and they eat everything. And she said, not my goats. And I had to change my entire paradigm because her goats don't do that. But that's what I've been told my whole life.
Yeah.
So, so I totally get what you are saying and what you're trying to convey in your book. And I am completely backing you up on this. And I have one more thing to back you up with. I released a podcast on Tuesday, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me right now. But it's a guy who used to be in emergency medical services, and then he got COVID, and he can't do his job anymore. He has long COVID.
Oh,
And he's now making jellies and jams and having great success with it, enjoying the heck out of it. But they also got chickens, and I think he said ducks. And he said that the chickens give him a reason to go outside and be outside,
yes.
and that he really, really enjoys it. And I did a little snooping about you so I could figure out questions to ask you, because this is what I do. I do my homework before I interview people. And you did a TED Talk back in 2017.
I
And
did.
and I watched the first like 5 or 10 minutes of it, and you were saying that your chickens bring you peace or
Yes.
something to that effect. And I was like, wow, she's done a TED Talk, but wow, what a thing to say. Chickens bring you peace and calm and joy. And I love that because I'm not going to lie, I don't love our chickens. They're not my favorite thing on earth to touch, but I do really like watching them because they're so silly.
Yes.
So, in having said all that, everything that you're trying to convey with your book, I believe in completely.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad. I had mentioned in the beginning that I had postpartum depression, and I'm not saying that chickens cure postpartum depression. I always have to have that disclaimer in.
Mhm.
But it's the same. It was the same thing with me. I was forced to go outside every day, and it didn't matter if I didn't feel good. It didn't matter if I didn't want to. If I wanted to lay down all day, or I wanted to look at my phone all day, or whatever.
Mhm.
I couldn't do that. I had to take care of the chickens. I had to clean their coop. I had to be responsible for them. Of course, I had to also be responsible for my child, but that was just like second nature to me. It was not second nature for me to make myself go outside, because I didn't grow up that way. I grew up, with that having been severed, that connection.
Mhm.
And so it was a reintroduction of that process in my life, this age old tradition in my life. And through my research with the book, I learned about my heritage. I learned more about my culture. There's a lot in the book about my great grandmother who lived in at the border of Guatemala and El Salvador, and
Mhm.
had chickens, during the Civil War. There was a almost 40-year Civil War in that area. And how there's like this story of survival, not just with her, but of humanity. Like we've had chickens at our side through war, through famine, through all these experiences, and gotten to this point. And so I really feel that when somebody knows where they came from, when someone learns about who they are, and certainly when someone has moments of peace in their daily life, that they will show more compassion for other people. And so that's another part of it that I think is really important, that we retain that experience so that we can just be better people to each other. So that's the other thing. I can get pretty deep with it, this chicken thing.
You're a chicken philosopher.
Yeah, I went to school for philosophy. That was like
Uh-huh.
that. I didn't graduate. I didn't get my degree, but I was, there for philosophy. Now I'm a chicken philosopher.
Yeah, why not? Um, the other thing that's great about chickens is there are so many things that work their way into your conversation on a daily. Um, Back when we first moved here, the chickens actually ended up having a run. Not only did they have the coop, but they had a chicken run off of the coop.
Yeah.
because we had a garden and chickens will destroy a garden if it's not
Oh, yeah.
fenced in. So, um, the chickens kept flying the coop, flying the run. Really, they would fly out of the run, and we didn't want them out of the run. And so, after the seventh time, one of the chickens was out running around the yard. I looked at my son, who was probably 19 at the time, and I said, "Those little mother cluckers," and he about peed himself laughing. And and he said, "You didn't say the other word." I said, "No, because they're mother cluckers." And he just started laughing again. And so that started a whole string of chicken words. And and
Yes.
and I had already picked some up because friends of ours up in Cloquet, Minnesota, they they ended up getting chickens to raise chickens for eggs. And I'm not sure whether they do the dual purpose for meat and eggs.
Hmm.
But her name is Lucy. Her husband decided to quit his job and raise chickens. And their egg company is called the Locally Laid Egg Company. And
Mm.
so all the chickens' names are Lola for locally laid, Lola. And
There you go.
they have the funniest catchphrases and taglines for their business. And so I already had some of them in the back of my head, and they kept coming up when I was talking about our chickens. And I was just like, chickens are so funny.
Yeah, there's no shortage of puns, of chicken puns.
there's a plethora of chicken puns. Yes, exactly. And when I was watching your TED Talk, I was talking to my kid this morning about you, and I said, she is funny. I said, she is almost stand-up comedian funny when she does the
Oh,
TED Talk.
thank you.
And he said, "It's all chicken jokes." And I said, "It's all chicken references. I'm not sure that it's necessarily jokes, but they play well." So
Thank you.
I was just very impressed that you had done a TED Talk. I was like, "Wow, I don't know
Oh, thank
anyone
you.
who's done a TED Talk."
I was like, I just had the idea of like, I want to do a chicken TED Talk, and I thought it's not going to happen because I had the same idea of just like, oh, it would be so hard to do a TED Talk. Like, who does that?
Mhm.
And I auditioned, and they picked it, and and so I was there with like all these like scholars and everything, and I'm like, oh, I don't even have a college degree, but here I am. And mine was the last one. Like mine closed the show.
Nice. Well, as I keep telling my kids over the years now, it's not necessarily a piece of paper that makes you an expert. It's your passion that makes you an expert.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yes.
they're some of the most brilliant, genius people I've ever met do not have college degrees, including myself. I don't have one either.
Yeah.
And the last thing I thought I would be doing is talking to homesteaders and cottage food producers and crafters in a podcast format at 54 years old. If you told me I was going to be doing this 5 years ago, I would have laughed myself stupid because I am shy and I didn't really like the sound of my voice when it's recorded, and I didn't know what the heck I would talk about on a podcast. So
Oh, you have a great
again,
voice, though. You have a
again,
great
it's
voice.
thank you. I I I have been told my entire life that I should do something with my voice because I also sing. I'm also terrible with stage fright. I have awful stage fright, so singing in
Mm.
public doesn't happen. And so I am doing something with my voice now, and I can listen to the recordings back without cringing, and it works great. Um, but I had no idea that I was going to be doing this now. But I love it. I love meeting people through this format and finding out about their lives and asking questions that educate me and educate the people who are listening because I think that's important.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it.
Me too. It's really fun. I'm hoping that something actually comes of it because my husband said to me the other day, he said, "How's the podcast coming?" And I said, "Well, I said I have 100% retention, whatever that means." He said that
Well,
means
that means that people are listening to the podcast all the way through, which is very good.
uh-huh. And he said, "You don't know what that means." I said, "I don't." He said, "Ask our son. He will know." I was like, "Yeah." So I asked the 22-year-old boy, I said, so what's 100% retention mean on a podcast statistic or analytics? And he went, what? I said,
Yeah, that's
what?
great.
I said, what does 100% retention mean on a podcast analytic? And he said a bad word at me and laughed. And I said, what is the problem? He said, it's called dumb luck, Mom. I was like, oh, okay. So it's good. He said, yes, it's very good. Keep doing what you're doing. I was like, okay. So basically, I need to find somebody who does podcasts and who's been doing them and pick their brains about what all the numbers mean. But I think it's going okay, and I really enjoy it, and I'm not going to quit doing it. So
Good for you.
So my passion is podcasting. Your passion is chickens, and you were saying that a dream is something that sneaks up behind you.
Yes.
I
I
think
didn't
that,
say it. I can't claim that I
yeah,
said that. Steven
yeah,
Spielberg said it.
you mentioned it earlier. I
Yeah.
think that a dream is something that finds you when you didn't know you were looking for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know I was looking for a podcast. I had no idea.
I'm
So,
glad it found you.
me too. It's so fun. I had no
Yeah.
idea how much fun it would be. And I was nervous about talking to you today because you are probably the quote unquote highest profile person I've talked to yet, because everybody I've talked to has been kind of smaller, not known in the way that you're known through YouTube. And
Well, that's how I started.
and I told my
Nobody knew who
husband.
I was. It took a long time.
Yeah, I
And I'm
told my
still
husband
like, oh,
about.
I need more. I need more.
Yeah, I told my husband about you, and he was like, "Are you kidding?" I said, "No, her publicist reached out." He said, "Oh my God." I said, "Uh-huh." I said, "I'm really nervous." He said, "Don't be. She probably puts on her pants just like everybody else, one leg at a time." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Yes.
So yeah, I was really jittery last night, and then I got up this morning. I was like, "I got this. She's probably super nice, so we're okay."
Yeah, you got this. Thank you. I mean, I'm grateful to be on and to be having these conversations, and
Yeah.
it's great. And Grace is great. Grace, my publicist, she's really great. She's been reaching out to a lot of good people, and so it's just been wonderful reaching out to everybody and getting out there more and more.
Before I let you go, because we've been talking for almost an hour, how's the book going? Is the book doing well?
It's really hard to tell. Like,
Here we go
I
with
mean,
analytics again. Yes.
but see, like with a book, you don't have that because everything's kind of disjointed. Like, you basically, Amazon is like the one thing where in real time how it's going. And I do rank, but my book ranks relatively high on Amazon in its category. And so, originally it really came out of the gate, it busted out of the gate. I was number one for a while. And then you share that, it kind of goes up and down. You share those positions with several other books that are in the industry. But so far so good. I'd love to write another one. And I also have my online course. That's the Backyard Chickens 101, a chicken course for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find that on my website along with everything else. Like, I've got a blog, I've got links to merchandise and links to my book. You can even get to my YouTube channel from my website, and of course I'm on all the socials. So yeah, I mean, I just keep going, and people keep being interested in chickens, and it's been a wild ride, but I'm still on it.
You've got some time to do some more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, Dahlia. Well, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys reaching out to me, because this was really fun.
You're so welcome, and I really appreciate you having me on.
All right. You have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye.